This is a game between a grandmaster and an expert. The grandmaster is white here. It's a nice example of building pressure, increasing the tension on an already attacked piece. It's a gang attack. More attackers than defenders is an undefended piece. Let's take a moment and look at this position. If you notice, the bishop is attacking the knight, and the knight is attacking this pawn. And do you see any black pieces attacking any white pieces? I don't. This little advantage is often enough to launch a winning combination. Whenever pieces are under attack, you look for opportunities to launch a gang attack, and at the right moment, pull the trigger and remove the defender. Black has an undefended pawn, not an undefended pawn, but an isolated pawn here. A pawn weakness, a target to go after. At the moment, the pawn is defended twice, once by the knight and once by the queen, and it's attacked once. With that in mind, let's build pressure on that weakness, on that weak point. So pause the video and bring another man into the attack. Pause the video. Okay, you should have seen there are two ways to attack this pawn again, once with the bishop here, and once with the queen here, and possibly with the queen here. Is one better than the other? Take a moment and evaluate this. See if you can stay ahead of your opponent. Pause the video. Okay, when you have an advantage, you want to look for more ways to create more weaknesses in your opponent's position. Because if you can win a pawn, if you can be up in material, then you're going to go into the main strategic goal of chess when you're up material, and that is to trade down into an endgame, into a one endgame. It becomes a lot easier to win a game when there are few, if no, pieces left on the board, and then one pawn can become a queen. You don't want to keep things complicated for yourself and allow your opponent to be able to create attacks. Also, you want to look for ways of allowing your opponent to make an error, so you look for moves that are a little more complicated to allow him to go wrong, which is what the grandmaster does here. He brings the queen here, which is a little more complicated than the bishop here, which allows black to complete his development by bringing the bishop out. So the queen immediately comes out, attacking the pawn twice, and now threatening to remove the guard. And now black has to figure out the lesser of evils, either to defend the pawn again and complete his development of the bishop, which would allow the queen to capture this pawn, which is what black did. And now the queen is free to capture this pawn. Other options for black may have been to bring the queen here, but then the queen could simply capture and create more bad pawns, and then the bishop would be free to capture the knight, and we'd still win the center pawn, the isolated pawn. So black chose instead to bring the bishop out, and the queen did capture. And black still has this bad pawn. The grandmaster now knows that going into the endgame, he has a decisive advantage with the extra pawn and another bad pawn left for black. The rook could slide over and attack the queen. Perhaps the queen could capture this pawn, and he'd have a passed pawn here. So instead, black chooses to attack the bishop, trying to get rid of this little pressure here, and knows that if the bishop backs off, the knight could capture it here, maybe create some bad pawns in white's position as well. But it's a little too late for that. Black attacks the bishop, and now I'd like you to pause the video and do an offensive power move evaluation before you decide what to do with the bishop. So pause the video. Okay, realize that the grandmaster wants to go into an endgame, knowing that he has an advantage. So did you find knight attacking the queen here? Power move number 2. That's what he does first. He has a Chicago way here. And the queen has to run. And white wants to trade down. Did you notice the fork? Knight takes bishop, check, which is what white does. Captures the bishop. The bishop is defended, but it takes him into an endgame. Now the queen captures. The rook recaptures. And now white captures the knight, creating another pawn weakness. So he has a very clear advantage going into the endgame. 1, 2, 3, 4 bad sets of pawns. So it's a one game. The Grandmaster used very simple concepts to form a plan, build pressure on a weakness, keep piling up on it, and other weaknesses may emerge that you can also attack.